Many years ago, Jackie, I'm sorry, Cassie, I remember we had a gathering at Hussein's house, you know. I was exhausted. I had worked at the car wash and it was broke from like 5 in the morning until about like 6. And it was a day where I think we had washed maybe 120 cars. So I take a shower and we go there, take a shower, of course, and you awake a little bit. And then you get in the car, you drive to Sacramento from Roseville. And from 8 o'clock, Jackie, I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I was exhausted. And there came a point where every time I looked at people, I felt agitated and angry because I wanted the night to end, but you know, they kept asking questions. And then I began to sweat, you know. And I'm sweating, I'm angry, I can't keep my eyes open. I want to fall asleep, but I can't. They're making too much noise. And eventually, you know, the night ends and I go home and I just crash on my bed at 2 in the morning, trying to not to get into a car accident on the highway. Hussein calls me at 10 in the morning and he says, Amir, what are you doing tonight? And you know, it's Hussein, so you say, I'm not doing anything. I mean, even if you were like planning to go to the moon, you have to cancel that appointment. So he said, nothing. He says, let's play tennis. I said, okay. So I go there, say, the first thing I say, I apologize for the way I was last night. And he says, I'm glad you came. I know you were tired. But the fact that you came was really nice. Thank you. And then I said, oh, okay, thank you very much. And then I was so happy that I beat him on the court, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. Just to kind of tell him that he was a bad tennis player.
No mercy.
Yeah.
I guess I do have a question.
Jackie, I'm so sorry.
Well, since you brought up that story, can you talk about capacity?
Um, first it depends on what it is that you're trying to do and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Okay? Let's say you are a person that has always kind of slept around 8:39 at night. Ever since you were like 2 years old to about 30. Even when you had like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you just, well, forget the boy. Only when you had like your woman. And you've always like went to bed about 8:39. And you have never imagined yourself, never thought that you could ever go to 10 or 11 or 12 or midnight. Okay? And then you get married and you have children. And all of a sudden, you realize, after like, when you say, man, I think it's been like 5 years since I slept. You know? Or you know, you say you have to write an essay for a class and you only have a paragraph and you need like another 10 paragraphs. And imagine you're never going to do it. It's impossible. You also come to realize it's the last class. All you need is a C and you stay up all night. You know, the idea of capacity is really a very strange thing in the sense that you want to achieve something, whatever it may be, it really doesn't matter. Initially, it's very abstract. You look at it from a distance and it looks humongous. And you say, I'm never going to get there. It's impossible. I can never go there. Because you're just a tiny little kind of worm down here, you know. And then for some strange reason, your attraction, your passion grows and, you know, and you start making efforts. And as you become engaged, it seems your capacity to stay up, to suffer more, to pay attention more, they also kind of grow with you. In many ways, it also depends on how much you enjoy the thing that you are doing. The more you enjoy it, it seems the more capacity is going to be given to you. The less you enjoy it, you know, there's a good chance that you won't. You will never know the capacity, your capacity is until you're engaged. You know. There are many people who say, I will never divorce. But you have no idea what, you know, life does to you and how you will react. And all of a sudden you say, yeah, I have the capacity to say God is dead. I have the capacity to say I don't care about my parents. I have the capacity to say I don't care about my kids. I don't care about my wife or my husband. I have that capacity. I'm walking away. You may think you don't have the capacity to end your life in a dignified way. You know, that you will never commit suicide. You love life too much. You love your kids too much. You get sick, you know, and then you kind of look at your child and you say, just pull the plug, I'm ready, you know. I think your physical body has a certain capacity. I think your emotional body has a certain capacity, and your mental body has a certain capacity. I think they all have, it's like a bucket. They can contain only so much stuff. Okay. However, I think when passion gets involved, when love gets involved, where meaning and purpose get involved, they have a tendency of increasing the size of these buckets a little bit. So, if for example you could run, you know, there was this episode that took place about 2-3 years ago in Oakland. There was a car crash. The ambulance was called to another incident. Apparently this guy stopped his car, went to this car that was catching fire, and the guy was 125 pounds. He carried someone who was 300 pounds on his shoulder and walked. And then he just put him somewhere, gave him some water, said, I gotta go to work. He goes to work, and then his boss says, you're late. What happened to you? He says, oh, nothing, you know, there was an incident and I had to do A, B, C, D. And everybody was looking for this particular hero, and eventually this boss calls in. You get caught in these moments in life, you know. Whether you know, my passion for Hussein says, I don't really care if I become homeless. I don't really care if I work at the car wash for the rest of my life. I am not going to study business. I'm not going to study history. I'm going to study philosophy. If it lands me at the car wash, fine. I don't really care. So when you find something that is meaningful to you, that has a tendency of increasing your physical capacity, your emotional capacity, you know, and your intellectual capacity. You just become more hungry. And as a result, your capacity grows, you know. But that growth of a capacity of a certain body can only last for so long. You can only keep your body up and awake and give it zero rest, you know, maybe for a couple of days, you know, and that you need to have a good amount of passion for that. When I was in Davis, we had a marathon. We wanted to kind of break the Guinness Book of Records, me and Farhad. Lake Berryessa had a tennis club, and so we connected to this organization, and they were going to give us like buckets of tennis balls and food and drinks. And because the goal was to break a record, and we were young, and we were ambitious, we were only able to stay up for 2 nights. Like you start at 6 in the morning and you just go. You know, we did this for like 2.5 nights, and then we just collapsed. You know, the record was 6 nights. You know, 6 days and nights. So, you know, there is this story in, I think it's in Our Lives with Mr. Gurdjieff, where he says you have to go from point A to point B, and all the students say, okay. And it's a really, really rough path. They run out of water, they run out of food. Their only source of nourishment is the image of Gurdjieff, what he says, how he is, how he talks, how he feels. And he keeps pushing, you know. And when you have Gurdjieff as your leader, you know, what Gurdjieff does, he creates this competition amongst all the disciples. I want to show Gurdjieff I can do it. And if everybody has this mentality, the moment you're limping, you fix yourself. The moment you're exhausted and you want to collapse, you fix yourself, you know. And Gurdjieff does that. He like adds fuel to all these different parts of you. And then there comes a point where they run into some people, they get some bread or flour from them, they make some bread, and then they rest. You know, but no food, no water, a rough terrain, Gurdjieff, all these are influences that keep people up. They go beyond their capacities. My mom's cousin, when he had all these amazing experiences, his temperature, he had I think, temperature of, 106, 107. And it was raining. It was in Sacramento. He had these miraculous experiences like 3-4 nights in a row. He couldn't rest, he couldn't sleep. He just had to have his body move all the time. So one night he said, since I can't do anything but to be active, I'm just going to go to Ace. There wasn't a Home Depot way back then. I'm just going to go to Ace and buy bags of concrete and concrete my backyard. It was cold, it was raining. He wore a t-shirt, shorts. He went at it for 7 hours. all because of the experiences, you know. So if you're around people or if you're around things, you know, that create certain influences inside you, you will go beyond, you know, the limitations of your flesh or your emotions, you know. There are lots of people who hate their parents. You know, they've hated them for their entire life. The father gets sick, and the person who hated them most is taking care of the father. It happens all the time. We have no idea what happens when empathy gets in, sympathy gets in, compassion gets in. You know. So there are amazing parts to us, you know. I mean, some of you, you know, you go to bed 9 or 10 at night. I don't know what time it is. I mean, right now. Oh my God, Kendra. It's, I can't read. It's 12:30.
Is it?
Yeah. You should go. Yeah. Lula will walk you out. I hope that's okay. My apologies. If you don't mind.
My apologies.
It's good to see you. Tell Majid I said hello.
It's good to see y'all.
Yeah, just knock her to the door and make sure she's okay. I mean, look, you know, most of us sleep at night. I know Allison kind of just passes out at 8:30. You know. A Thursday, there are a few of us gathered here. I mean, maybe you're just being nice and you really want to sleep but you can't, or whatever the case may be, but you're up. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, and then that's, you know, that should kind of give you this great revelation. If you can put your physical body, if you put your physical body in a certain physical environment and inject doses of emotional and psychological nourishment, if you just can you manipulate, your physical body will never rest. At least for, you can stay up for a few hours more, you know. It's like the story I always tell. A guy wants to pray, can't pray. When he does pray, there are no tears. So he is told, grab a couple of onions, put them close to his eyes, and all of a sudden it just breaks down. And then he becomes the guru, you know. So that's something that Gurdjieff used to do all the time, you know, to push people beyond the capacity that they imagine never existed, you know. You know, Allison has a mother, Carolina, you know. She used to enjoy the climate in Oakland. And she used to drive to Oakland and just sit in the woods for like sometimes 3-4 days in a row. How old was she? 102. How many 102-year-olds do you know who are able to drive, you know, 2.5 hours with a bad back, bad knees, bad neck, bad hip? I mean, they're like put together with like super glue, you know. You know, and that's the thing. You know, if you know that there are things out there that can move you, inspire you emotionally, intellectual inspiration, they mean nothing. You need to initially be moved emotionally. Okay? Okay. If you want to read, for example, I don't know, the Gospels, but you're approaching it in a very intellectual way, you should not ever approach the Gospels. What you should do is manipulate the emotional body. Okay? Once you have melted, remove the ice, and now you feel, then go read the Gospel of Mark and see how it feels to be misunderstood constantly. You know, if you're going to approach it like a scholar, let me go there and, take notes and see how many times Jesus says I in the Gospel of Mark. Well, you're an idiot as a scholar. And that's not the way you approach the Gospels. It has its benefits, don't get me wrong, But if you kind of have this urge, I want to just feel Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, you can't just walk to the Gospel and start reading it. It's not going to work. And I think if you're able to manipulate yourself, the capacity for you to feel Jesus in the Gospel of Mark will appear.
But at what stage can you manipulate yourself?
Oh, you can't.
Well,
Yeah, others have to do it for you.
okay.
I used to idolize Bjorn Borg, in the 80s. There was just something about him that I just liked, besides the fact that he was a great tennis player. So I used to carry his picture that I ripped from a magazine at the library, just ripped it and put it in my tennis cover racket, a racket cover. And so every time I remember that I was playing a bad game, I would take out his picture without anybody seeing, looking. Bjorn, help me. What do I need to do? And that would kind of inspire me. I really think manipulation is kind of like like cooking. And you have to bring it to a boil. And what happens when you bring the emotions to a boil is that when you read the Gospel of Mark, for example, when you read Gurdjieff, when you read Malcolm X, what happens is that the emotions breathe life into the mental images that you see on paper, because the book is like Caesar, but your emotions are like God. The book is flesh, but the emotions are like the spirit. They breathe, life into this stuff. And all of a sudden you kind of feel engaged as you are reading, And the thing is, when you are in the stage, you won't remember anything after it's done. Because the function wasn't to learn to remember. The function was to experience. Learning without experience, in the end, they just kind of, you feel like you've shortchanged yourself. But going back to your question, someone needs to do it for you from the outside for a while. A few weeks ago, we had some kids here, like 10 little kids. And we decided to have them do math. What kids like to sit for like 5 hours do math? And no kid desires, right? Unless they just happen to be like geniuses or weirdos. And so you get 10 of them here. They all did math. There were some hiccups here and there, but they did math for like 5 hours. First there is this, competition. I can do what Johnny did, and Johnny can do what Mikey did, and Mikey can do what Elsa did. And you would have never imagined that 2-year-olds actually have the capacity to sit still for 5 hours. Lo and behold, they can. It just needs the right environment.